Good afternoon. Welcome to our latest town council meeting here this fine Tuesday, February 11th. We're going to start with a work session with Post, Parks, Open Space and Trails, and their 5-year capital improvements plan, and learn a little bit more about that. So Michelle, I think you are leading this discussion.
I am. Thank you so much. I'm excited to present the overview of upcoming efforts that Post is pursuing. The Post group is made up of Jason Groves, Julie Kolar, Paul Hiltz, Leah Bonilla, Mercedes Brown, and Simi Hamilton. This group meets virtually, so it's really difficult to get them here in the room. So they're excited for the conversation, but have entrusted me with representing them today. So here we are. On the next slide.
Anybody online?
Just a minute, I can tell you.
Say hello if they are.
Would be good. Not, oh,
It does not look like it.
All right, well, they join later. We'll say hi.
fair enough.
Sorry, I didn't mean to totally
It's okay.
screw up your
That's okay, we're back. Here we
chair
go.
scheme.
All right. So just for reference, the last time the Post master plan was adopted was in 2013. Many of the accomplishments in that plan have occurred, including trail connections throughout town, and of course the development of the Basalt River Park, the band shell and the bus stop, restroom building. Arbany Park Playground is one of the many aspects in there. And so for Post to create kind of an updated master plan, they wanted to make some informed decisions based on some data. So the town contracted 110%, who is a consultant that specializes in parks and recreation financial management strategies, who created a report for us in 2024. You're so good. So the report it includes the goals and objectives based on sort of these items outlined here to the side: actively understanding the cost of doing business, identifying opportunities for cost savings, seeking out partnerships that have reciprocal benefits, divesting of services that don't align with our mission or our resources, reinvesting in important services, and maintaining infrastructure. The report reflects data that was collected on annual maintenance costs for each of the town's assets, including age, condition, and those sorts of things. It's hard costs and soft costs. So hard costs such as replacing equipment, soft costs such as labor. And I really want to acknowledge Chris Beiser and Trevor Lalonde here for diligently documenting all of their work and all of their expenses for the entire year of 2024. It was pivotal in us getting the information. So the report really goes into a lot of detail, recommending priorities for maintenance projects. I'm going to highlight some of these issues as helping identify what the priorities should be based on: public health, meeting ADA requirements. We do have a lot of older facilities here and playgrounds. Advancing environmental sustainability practices, and extending the life of our structures as well. Next slide. So the report does include a proposed 5-year capital improvement plan. And these recommendations will be reviewed by Post, refined, and then Post will create a more comprehensive document that includes the town's goals. And then we'll recommend that 5-year CIP to council at the next budget cycle. And as an example here, we have some items that have come up since this report was created that need to be considered as we go forward in recommending this CIP. So some of those things are in the consultant's plan. For example, the Arbany Park restroom is considered for a complete overhaul in a new building. Post hasn't had a chance to really dig into that, and we're going to kind of weigh, do we just need to do some minor improvements to it, or is there really a need, a facility failure to replace it? So we'll kind of go through and really nitpick those details there. Other opportunities that have come up since then are the community space that's potentially going to be at Willits, and the Willits Lane connectivity plan, trail improvements there, and possibly improvements that could come up at Crown Mountain Park. So, we're going to use this input from our financial management strategy report to consider needs, opportunities, and stakeholder input to create this CIP. And that'll be everything from citizens to school district to considering our alternative transportation goals, recreational programming options, and just enjoyment and passive use of our parks. And again, that'll come back here in budget season in the fall for you to see. This isn't that exciting, but it's just how we're going to go forward. So the next steps in our process are to advertise for a consultant to help us draft this CIP, and work through kind of that public process with posts and with our stakeholders through the spring and the summer, draft the document, and then we'll come back to you. One thing that came up through our review of this with Post that they were really excited about is just making sure that our 5-year CIP includes conversations with all of our partners. So that includes, figuring out what our needs are just internally for the town's recreation programs, and then of course things that we might partner with on the school district or with our friends from Crown Mountain Recreation District. So that's the dry aspect of an overview of our CIP. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions if there are any there. Oh, I burned right through that. That's good.
Is this going to be similar in format to the arts one we saw?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. It's just going to be more comprehensive because in the arts CIP, we don't really have that many assets. Mm-hmm. But obviously for parks and trails, we have a lot more assets, and there are a lot more maintenance costs to consider, and the age of infrastructure. So a little more complex, but similar.
Gotcha. Pretty straightforward.
Do we have the previous CIP, was there a 5-year plan?
No.
Oh, there's been 0.
No. And that's why we wanted to have that's why we hired this consultant to make that plan, because now that the river park is done and kind of some major capital projects are done, we didn't want to start making recommendations for spending the post money without understanding what it's going to cost to maintain what we have.
Can I just
I was gonna say,
jump in
I
on
know
that?
we have some stuff, we have been in the capital works plan.
Yeah, so we have a 5-year capital improvement plan
Yeah.
that includes post,
Yep.
and that's been in place for years and years.
Yes.
And what has informed that over the years, in part, was coming from the 2013 Parks Master Plan.
Yeah, okay.
So, so now what they're looking to do is have, again, some of those ideas from this master plan, that you'd have a CIP sort of outlined in that, it sounds like, from it. And then, we would still continue to maintain a capital improvements plan that kind of covers all of the town's projects, just, outside of post as well. So that planning has been in place.
Yeah, because it's in our target and it shows which ones we were working on per year. But it would be interesting to look at that, pull that out from the specific planning, just to make sure we're staying on track.
Yeah. I think, sorry, I misspoke there. So it's really to kind of dial in the details a little bit more. Because just wanting to anticipate the lifespan of some of the assets, if you will. All right. Well, with that, I'll turn it over and introduce Becky Wagner and Nate Grinzinger from Crown Mountain Recreation District for an update on what's happening there. Actually, I said I would give you, come on up.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having
Put your
us.
chair up.
So we completed our master plan in 2023. Let me just see. The map that you see right there, other than where it says future leased area, that is not accurate on that map. But this is the master plan for the park that we are using to update our PUD, our planned unit development. That is in the process, we just did the referrals. What we're gonna do with this PUD amendment is really start prioritizing our CIP plan for the park in the next 5 years. So it kind of aligns with what you guys are doing. I hope all of you know that the district boundaries are from Old Snowmass to Blue Lake. So we serve all of Basalt. So during that master plan process, it included 5 focus groups, 3 public meetings, and we had 3 surveys. We are going to be in front of the Roaring Fork Planning Commission on March 20th, and then we are going to be in front of the Eagle County Commissioners on April 29th. What we're really, well, and we're looking at the intersection next Tuesday. The intersection has been a real hurdle for Crown Mountain Park over the last 20 years. It's really prohibited us from doing things. For instance, 10 years ago, they wanted to put a Frisbee golf course in. We couldn't put it in because of the intersection. We have a trampoline in our garage from 2 years ago. We couldn't put it in because the PUD was not flexible enough. This allows us to be flexible and provide for the changing community. Our goal in the next 5 years is to create year-round recreational facilities for the public that impact not only physical, but we also know that there's some mental health issues within our community, and really focusing in on that. Nate, do you want to?
Just to fill in a little bit, that trampoline she mentioned was a partnership with Aspen Valley Ski Club. They were going to pay for a trampoline in the Mid-Valley to train athletes. So we put that in with Eagle County. They decided that falls under a trampoline park, and that is not in our PUD allowable rights. So that thing has been collecting dust in our garage for 2 years. So really, the moral of the story with the PUD update is get a little bit more flexibility so we can do what we do, and so that we can thrive in park and recreation. Eagle County also doesn't have the time to micromanage us, so this is kind of moving away a little bit from such strong oversight on things like this. A single trampoline coming into Crown Mountain Park, fully funded by AVSC. We could have had that thing in place 2 years ago, training, nationally ranked kids like Ryder Hutchinson, if you guys know Ryder. So big missed opportunities just from the PUD being a little bit constrictive.
So we're pretty excited to be moving on with this PUD amendment so we can start working on our capital improvement plans in the future. Just so you guys know, we do have money in the budget to put in outdoor turf this year, which will create great year-round turf sports for the kids. And for, honestly, the Latino population that doesn't get to recreate in the winter because they can't afford the expensive ski passes. So just looking at that, and I think this is great. I think from what we've seen working with Basalt so far, everybody seems to really love what we're doing, and we really want to start working with you guys as partners in the future. I think that's what we need to really provide for our community.
It feels kind of like everyone between you guys and Post, your council, Crown Mountain Park, we have some similar goals, it seems like, and I think that's more of a conversation to continue to uncover. But a little bit on Crown, we have lasers in the park to count cars. We hit 500,000 visits last year. That's a significant growth from when Becky and I started 10 years ago. We went from 3 organizations using Crown to 32. We have now a world-class bike park that gets 150,000 visits a year. We've done a ton. We've drawn a ton of traffic, but we're still very untapped. If the partnerships at this point could take everything to a whole nother level. If you're interested in making a huge impact on people and making a huge impact on local business, starting to look at some level of a partnership with Crown Mountain Park is, in our opinion, we're subjective, of course, but is where it's at. If we want to make a huge impact on the Mid-Valley, in a lot of ways, Basalt and Crown Mountain Park starting to look at what we can do together is the next big opportunity in the Mid-Valley. So there's immense opportunity there, and you guys have probably heard this as we were kind of brainstorming one day, and your guys' Basalt Connect not driving to Crown Mountain Park and dropping kids off is just an example of how much there is to look at regarding Basalt and Crown working together. because there's really no history of Basalt and Crown working together at all, and we think it's time.
Thank you.
I had a question with just kind of about the planning there. See hard court surfaces, and I don't see the tennis courts there. Just out of curiosity, are
So-
those moving? Like, what's the game plan?
So
for that?
we had to make it as broad as possible because they won't allow us to put pickleball courts in right now in our PUD.
Okay.
So we had to say hard court surfaces because we don't know if the next pickleball 20 years from now is something different. We don't know what it's called.
Sure.
So everything had to be extremely broad. So tennis will stay where it is, but if we ever had to expand on tennis facilities, it would go into that area.
Okay,
If that makes sense.
that's good. Yeah, I mean, I think racket sports, I mean, I don't want to geek out too much, you know,
Then
but,
it's paddle. So we were.
yeah, it's
we were-
just
it
gonna
was-
get bigger and bigger.
It was every little
A little bit of semantics. Yeah.
detail
Yeah.
they hold us to. So to me, I thought a trampoline could be considered like a slide or a climbing wall and not a trampoline park. But then they considered it to be a park, so then we couldn't put the trampoline in. So we had to call it aerial sports. So if we ever want to do like a ski jump in the future,
Yeah,
it's at least covered. It's, yeah.
wow.
Otherwise, you have to spend $200,000 to amend a PUD to add the uses. So we tried to make it as flexible as possible, really thinking, 20, 30 years down the line.
So we're 2 years in on this PUD update and about $200,000 in. So it's been a bit of a grind, and we're at the finish line. Yeah.
Cool, yeah, thanks for that.
Where's the turf going?
Yeah, so you see where the indoor facilities are? That, I don't know if it's a triangle on the right.
Yeah, the blob thing.
Yeah, so we're looking at creating what we don't want to do is take away the space. Now, I don't know if you guys remember in 2012, we looked at 28 locations for indoor facilities in our district in Basalt. And this was the #1 location for indoor facilities. So what we're doing is we're creating a phased approach. So we're gonna put the turf in, but then we're also gonna put a phased approach, so we're making sure we're not putting it where the indoor facilities will go in the future. So it'll be attached to the indoor facilities, if that makes sense.
And we're very interested in sound financial management. We're not big fans of subsidizing things unless we absolutely have to. So
Or we can't.
anything we build is going to be very thoughtful with long-term financial stability. So we're looking at a very low operations type of indoor team sports training facility. No big rec center, no big cost, no big subsidy, anything like that.
Like a field house or something?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this year, our goal is to put in a parking lot. You'll see the parking lot, we need a parking lot by the soccer fields on the other side. And then we're gonna put in we call it the second phase of a turf training area. In that location, you can fit about a U10 size soccer field, but as Dieter probably knows, when you're playing on turf, it's different than playing on long grass. It's a totally different game. So when we travel to Denver or anywhere with turf, we get crushed every year. It's a quicker, faster game, particularly for soccer, but then we can also plow it and use it year round. We went to Gypsum the other day. They have 11 turf fields and they crush us every year. So it was kind of an eye opener. And Aspen really isn't open to the public. They charge I think it was like $150 an hour to use their turf, so it's really unaffordable. This will be open to the public unless it's rented. So,
The same rental systems, like, similar to what you guys have now, or you can
yeah, it's,
reserve assets in the park?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So I'm guessing it's gonna be used a lot. We're also looking at putting turf in our infields to decrease maintenance and create year-round use of the baseball fields. But we gotta see what kind of funding we can get from private entities for that. So we just got we're creating a whole deck on different things people can donate to create more year-round
Cool.
facilities.
The first field you're gonna turf, so that won't be, it's outdoor turf.
Correct.
So like what's at Gypsum, like the Gypsum
Yeah,
Eagle
outdoor.
baseball place?
Yep,
where the
we
lacrosse
have
tournament
money
is?
in our budget this year to put that in.
Okay, and and you said that's U10 size, so that's like a half field almost?
Yeah, the U10, if you're by like the baseball fields, those smaller fields fit in that location.
Okay.
I was telling Michelle before this, the school districts definitely could use some funding for a full turf. They have zero money for athletics. It's quite shocking, how underfunded they are for athletics in the school systems. But all the schools in Eagle and Gypsum they all have it. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a hit, almost too big of a hit. People are gonna be fighting over it.
And so I guess my question would be, I mean, a lot of the cost is obviously the turf, but a lot's in the preparation. So could you go out for more funding now to make a bigger field? Because the cost of installing one field to the cost of installing two fields is a completely, you're halfway there already.
Yeah, so we're launching a capital campaign and going to present a menu of things that people who are interested in tax benefits can help fund. We've raised a lot of money in the 10 years. We've probably brought in about $3.3 million. Our bike park, for example, is a $3.5 million bike park. Taxpayers paid for about 16% of that. So we're really honed in on moving things along by drawing some capital in from outside support, and at this point, how far we go is directly related to the partnerships we can kind of tap into and how much of an impact we can make on the community, so that's what we're here to kind of communicate about, is anyone who's interested in a partnership and what that would look like.
And that's exactly what we're thinking. If we have like a private donor that wants to come in and do a full-size turf, where would that go at the park? So we're thinking about all of that, all that stuff. Right now, that's a U10 size field is all we can afford.
With your current budget.
Correct.
And the second parking lot, is that like coming in? And that's
To the
it?
left of the mouse, go further right.
Yeah, it's that one. That's the new one?
And it'll be on the left side. We're doing the left. And the design has changed a little bit, but
That's what you go.
it'll serve,
Here's the new.
Yeah.
it'll serve the soccer fields because we get a lot of traffic on the road in.
Okay.
We're trying to get the people off the road. And then it'll also serve the turf field. And then we're looking at enhancing the entry into the park so people aren't stacked on each side.
Really though, we're at 500,000 visits and we're still untapped potential. There's not an indoor facility on the site other than the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the future leased area, that's like those fields that are parked in during the lacrosse tournament?
This is the Forest
half of
Service, the current Forest Service land. Pitkin County and Eagle County have first right of refusal on that.
Yeah.
And there's talks about housing, senior housing right now. We'll be at the table for the conversation.
So that's some of that field though, right? Or is that in that triangle-ish area?
It's in the triangle area because we don't have,
You don't use any of that stuff yet?
just for parking.
It's an event parking lot right now
Just
for
the-
us,
Okay.
a couple times a year.
Our board, if we were ever to get some of that land, we could put in some good turf
Yeah.
fields
yeah.
there. It's a nice flat piece. That makes a ton of sense.
That's the only place a full-size turf makes sense for us.
We don't want to, there's something special about the beauty of the mile loop and all the grass in the loop. So we're being very particular about what we disturb at the park to make sure it stays
Yep.
in certain areas the natural way it is. We take that pretty seriously. So that's why we put the indoor and turf facilities on the right side of the road when you're coming in. And we're kind of trying to stay away from the left side of the road. But yes, those are all good questions.
That yellow building, is that the,
That's the community building that's kind of abandoned back by our offices. That building right now is looking to be tore down next year. It's 12,000 square feet of community space. We looked at what it would cost to pull some walls out and do some asbestos mitigation. It's around $3 to $4 million. And that's why, and the location is by our maintenance facilities, and it was the wrong location for us to do facilities. There's no parking, the access isn't quite right. But we've done a ton of research on that building.
and so would you guys be taking that building down? Or is that
They're gonna bulldoze it.
They're gonna bulldoze it next
It's
year.
a liability sitting on their hands, and it's a
it's an Eagle County building?
Correct.
total square footage is 16 to 17,000 square feet. They're probably gonna bulldoze the whole thing.
Could
The-
be a
the
nice daycare center.
Roof is currently caving in, and
It actually is pretty nice inside, but I kind of like it.
nice is relative,
I
but
kind of like it. Yeah.
there's a lot going on inside this little thing, this little visual here, but yeah, don't want to take up too much of your guys' time.
Well, this is
exciting,
helpful,
it's a
yeah.
good thing.
I mean, they had, 20 years ago, there was these conversations regarding that building with the town of Basalt and Crown. I don't know if you guys, how much history you know about Crown and the town of Basalt. Leroy obviously knows a ton, Leroy DeRux. But what happened was Weckmerd, which is Mountain Rec, which is an Eagle, they were all individual rec departments, and they created what's now called Mountain Rec, and they all combined to create a master plan of the entire area, and that's why their facilities are so incredible. So they put a field house in Edward, a rec center in Gypsum, all these different turf fields, and they left Crown out of it because, I saw in the notes, because Crown at the time was like, well, why wouldn't we create a rec district in the Roaring Fork Valley, which makes a ton of sense, right? So come up with a whole master plan of the Roaring Fork Valley. But obviously that never happened. It's kind of unfortunate because it would have just made our facilities better. But I don't know, at the time, I think Crown was just very underfunded. We couldn't do the programming, so Basalt took the programming, we did the facilities. Now we're kind of looking at the future and the amount of growth we've had in the valley, and how can we work together, I think it's really hard to run a department with one or two people, trust me. And I can't imagine what Matt has to do by himself over here at the rec department. It's hard,
He was running the scoreboard at the game last night. But
Yeah,
he's-
you're stronger
he's
together.
everywhere. He's
Yeah,
busting his butt. So
right.
Shut up.
So, I don't know, so just, thinking about that in the future, so.
I might just give you one other little tidbit of context where we are. So Eagle County referred the land use application for the PUD amendment to the town, which is what is typical. So P&Z reviewed the application January 21st, Post reviewed it January 22nd, and of course but they were overwhelmingly supportive of this. So I wanted to make sure that this group was also totally aware of all of the movement there on that PUD amendment, and just acknowledging that there was a request from Post to send a letter of support to the Roaring Fork Planning Commission for that hearing. So we'll be working on that as well.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thank you,
Yeah. Thank you guys for all the work you're doing.
it's great.
It's a lot. It's a lot for a few people to do, but I mean, this is such a great asset for the valley, and
We love it. I mean, it's changed so much and we've impacted so many people's lives. So we're just gonna keep doing it. So it's great. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
thanks for coming in. What else do you have, Michelle?
That's all I have. I'm stoked that we finished a little early.
Might be the first one ever.
Well, we're going to take a little break here. We'll be back online at 6 o'clock for our regular meeting, so we'll see you all back then. Thanks. Good evening and welcome back to our February 11th Town Council meeting. So we'll resume our regular agenda. Earlier, we had a work session on post, and that was informative, and so we'll get started though with the regular agenda, and I'll ask Pam to please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let us begin with Angèle Dupré-Bouchard,
Here.
Ryan Slack,
Here.
David Knight,
Here.
Dieter Schindler,
Here.
Angela Anderson,
Here.
Rick Stevens is absent, and Hannah Berman is going to be joining us later.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And next up is item 2, the consent agenda, and that includes item 2A, the minutes from January 28th, 2025, and item 2B, the 2024 Charity Classic Beneficiary Selection. That's the golf tournament up at the club, and that's the recipients are response to the Sendigo. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented, or if anyone wants to pull anything off, feel free to do that as well. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor, I move that the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, we have item 3, the call to the public. And I'll just go over some ground rules here. So please limit your comments to 3 minutes and address those comments directly to me. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments, and also please sign in at the back of the room with your name and address as well. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive, and town council will make no decision or take action except to direct the town manager. I know we also have a couple public hearings tonight for some specific agenda item topics. I would just ask that you wait for those specific public hearings to make those comments so that can be included in the record for those agenda items. So with that, I will open up call to the public if anybody would like to come up and address council. Sounds like no, and if there's anybody online, I forgot to say at the beginning, if you wanted to join the Zoom directly to make comments later on in the meeting, you can do that by going to basalt.net, clicking on the Agenda and Minutes tab, and selecting the packet for February 11th, 2025, and then you'll see the instructions for joining via Zoom if you'd like to do that. But with that, I don't think we have any comments up here or online, it appears, so we'll go ahead and move on to our next agenda item, which is item 4, Mayor and Council Report Comments. All the floor is open for you guys.
I talked about it in the post session, but I would like to give a shout out to Matt and the rec department. He is busting his butt to get our kids to be able to play basketball, and at both schools, just really hustling and run scoreboards, getting referees. He's doing whatever it takes, and I really appreciate him being hands-on, and he's super helpful as an athletic director, as someone that's coaching. So I just want to give a big thank you to him for keeping Basalt in the game on all the recreational activities.
We'll pass it along, thank you.
Anything else? Chief, I just wanted to pass on my thanks to Lieutenant Munch and Corporal Knoll for their efforts on January 30th. And tough situation, their professionalism, so thank you for that. If you pass that along to them. And that is all I had as well, so I will move on to item 5, which is the manager's report.
I just had a couple brief items. The first is this Friday, we'll be conducting interviews for the Public Works Director. So I'll probably be making a decision shortly thereafter, maybe early next week. So we'll get that position filled. I think I mentioned this actually already once, but it doesn't hurt to remind the public that we've been up on Pinion Drive to do the first phase, sort of the example plot for our wildfire mitigation. So that work is complete. I will say there's a little bit more to do. Chris Beiser will bring that crew back the Roaring Fork Outdoor Volunteers in April to complete it. But it does, just above the water plant, really give you a good sense of what the mitigation looks like. And, I think certainly helps allay fears of it being clear cut or something along those lines. So definitely helps keep the fire away. So our plan is to do that work about a year from now, in the winter months, in the other locations throughout town. And then,
Can I ask a question about that?
sure.
Do you think it would make sense to me to do a field trip with all of us with some commentary at some point, just to
We could,
check that out? I don't mean,
sure.
weather permitting, and it, would, if you guys think it would be meaningful,
Yeah, sure. We could certainly do that.
that'd be cool.
And it might not be a bad idea. We could couple that probably with a visit to the water plant, since some of the newer council members, I don't think have been there just yet. So we did that with some of you when you were elected, and good to see that infrastructure, understand where it is and how it works and all that. So thanks for that, Mayor. And then lastly, I would just say we at the last council meeting had approved the contract with Roaring Fork Engineering to help us with our consulting engineering. We had sort of a kickoff meeting with them earlier this week that Catherine had arranged. So I think that was a really good first step. They'll be coming back out to do some site visits, get acquainted with some of the projects that we have either underway or planned. So we'll start hitting the ground running as we need to get those projects bid out here in short order.
Okay.
So that's all I have for you, Mayor.
All right. Moving right along. Next up is our council actions. So item 6A is a public hearing and second reading ordinance number 2, series of 2025. An ordinance of the Town of Basalt, Colorado approving code amendments to the Basalt Community Housing Guidelines, amending Part 3, Section 3B to update the town's community housing cash and lieu fees. And James, I think this is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance that would amend Part 3 of the Community Housing Guidelines to update the town's affordable housing cash and lieu fee amount. As background, cash and lieu is included in the town code as a method for mitigating for affordable housing, and it's at the discretion of the town council. It is really only used on projects where a portion of a deed restricted unit is required for mitigation purposes, and it isn't possible to do a deed restricted unit on the site. And cash in lieu, as was mentioned at first reading, is listed as the lowest preference in terms of mitigation methods in the town code, but it's required by law to have a cash in lieu option. The cash in lieu amount hasn't been updated since 2015, and as part of the affordable housing study work that EPS has done, they calculated an update to the cash in lieu fee using the method that's legally accepted, and it's based on the gap between the median free market home price and the maximum affordable housing home prices. The council approved the ordinance on first reading, and there haven't been substantive changes since second reading. This evening, staff would suggest asking questions of staff, taking public comments because it's a public hearing, and then you could approve the ordinance on second reading if you're comfortable. The Planning and Zoning Commission and the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, BAC, each recommended approval. We also do have Brian Duffney from EPS on the Zoom call if you have any questions for him as well.
Thanks, James. I think, who did you say was on, Brian?
Yeah, Brian Duffney from EPS is also on if you have questions of him.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say, or any further comments?
No, I don't. I'm available if there are questions.
Okay. So we'll hold on the questions. I want to open it up for public hearing first. So if anybody would like to come up and make public comments, feel free to do so. Again, it's 3 minutes, and make sure you sign in at the back of the room in addition to giving your name and address up here. Anyone interested in making public comments on this agenda item? Anybody online interested? Oh, come on up.
I think this is the right one. This is the short-term rental.
No, next one.
That's the next one.
I will be later. Thank you very much.
All right. It won't be long, I don't think. Anyone online, though, interested in making public comments on or changes to the cash and lieu fees, that ordinance? Looks like we don't have anyone interested in making public comments, so I will close the public hearing, and I will open it up for questions and comments from my fellow counselors.
I'm happy we're amending the cash and lieu fees. I think it's, we're past due, so. Sorry, just so you don't get yelled. Okay, I'm all done.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't have any further comments from last week. I'm supportive of this. Same reason Angela is because it needs to be done. And so with that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt ordinance number 2, series of 2025 on second reading.
Second.
Got a Family Feud seconding there. You get who got that?
Yeah, I think you made it in just heartbeat before Angela.
Perfect.
I'll get you.
All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Well, Hannah's here.
Oh, Hannah's on there now?
Yeah, so I don't know
All
if
right.
we need
No,
to
we
promote
we
her
did.
and then do voice vote.
We do need to do a voice vote. I didn't know she joined.
I was not aware either. There she is. Hi, Hannah, can you hear us?
Thanks for catching that.
Oh, I saw her.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Go ahead and do a roll call on this vote, please, and we'll start with David Knight.
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angèle Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
and Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. All right. Next item up is item 6B, public hearing and second reading ordinance number 3, series of 2025. An ordinance of the town of Basalt, Colorado, approving town code amendments, amending section 16-203C, renting of rooms and housing units, and amending appendix C, fee schedule, other fees table, establish a short-term rental fee. James, this is yours as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to consider code amendments to Town Code Section 16-203, which is the short-term rental section of the code, as well as to Appendix C, which is the fee schedule. And as the mayor indicated, it would be to establish a short-term regulatory fee. As background, as was discussed at the last meeting, as part of the EPS contract work on the housing report, they were required to provide the town with a legal nexus report for the potential to establish a short-term rental regulatory fee, as the town council was interested in having short-term rentals better mitigate their impact on the town's supply of housing. As was discussed at the last meeting, they provided that legal nexus report, and it's in your packet. It concludes that the town could enact a fee on short-term rentals of up to $5,064 per bedroom per year. The fee would need to be placed in a dedicated fund and used for affordable housing creation, as is outlined in the draft ordinance. The code amendments, as you have in your packet, and as was introduced at the last meeting, propose a code amendment fee that would be added in an annual fee of $2,532 per bedroom, which is half the maximum amount that could be added based on the EPS analysis. As was noted at the last meeting, the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, BAC, as well as the P&Z, felt it appropriate to add the fee at half the amount that could be added legally, and monitor the impact that it has on short-term rentals for a year or two to see if the fee needed to be adjusted after that. Also, the Planning and Zoning Commission thought it appropriate to have a exemption for a property owner from the fee that occupies their residence as their primary residence and would not rent their unit more than 60 days total in a year on a short-term basis. And council at the last meeting was in agreement with that exemption. So since first reading, the ordinance was amended to include that exemption, and you have it in your packet as Exhibit A to the ordinance. The council also asked for information on what other jurisdictions in the valley were doing in terms of fees and taxes, and so staff has provided a memo. We also have it here on the screen. You know, basically, the other jurisdictions in the valley have a combination of taxes on short-term rentals and fees, and you can see them here. A lot of the jurisdictions had quite a bit higher taxes than the town currently has, but lower fees than what is projected by the town. Those are kind of the two options for mitigating for affordable short-term rentals. Staff also believes that there are several options this evening for decisions. We understand that council has received considerable feedback on the proposed fee and will receive more this evening. So staff would suggest conducting the regular public hearing procedures, which are that you could ask questions of staff. And once again, we have Brian from EPS on the line. And then take public comments and provide council discussion. Ultimately, staff would suggest if you have additional information that you need, that you outline that for staff and EPS, and then you could continue the public hearing to March 11th, so we could bring back that information. Doug Patterson, the finance director, also has some additional comments on the kind of extent of the fee that we think we would collect, and also town attorney Jeff Conklin has some comments on the legal aspects of the fee as well. Doug, would you like to jump in on your piece?
So we met, so we talked about this last meeting. We had estimated the amount of the fee would generate approximately $200,000 to the fund for the town. And that assumed that all of the folks that had licenses would continue and that on average, the residents would have 2 bedrooms apiece. Once we spent some time after the meeting looking at that a little further, there are really 3 categories of people that have short-term licenses. One that are remitting the money directly to the town. There are people who have short-term licenses that are remitting through Airbnb, VRBO, and then there's about, I don't know, 20% of the people who are non-compliant. That we know they're advertising their property, but they're non-compliant. So there's 3 categories. And I think in general, we're talking about 50 licenses. The only property owners that are remitting directly to the town are the ones we have data on. So I don't know how many actually nights they're renting, but I was going through all of the income for all the various properties. There were some properties that would only, I don't know, generate maybe $15,000 of income. So they would clearly qualify for the 60-day exemption. And then there were some properties that were in excess of $60,000, and they would, more likely than not qualify for the exemption. And then there were several of the properties that were jump balls. They were not knowing the rate per night. It could go either way. So having taken all that into consideration, and then knowing that the remittances that we're getting from VRBO and Airbnb do not list the actual properties, so we don't know what the actual dollar amounts are per property. So it's impossible to determine whether or not they're going to qualify for the exemption or not. But looking at the ones we do know, it seemed like about half of them would qualify for the exemption and half would not. Okay? Now, it doesn't take into account, if you're right on the bubble and you're, I don't know, running something like 65 days of rental, would the property owner dial back the days rented and forego the fee, manage their days to 60. That doesn't account for, what somebody might do. So long story longer, that I'm thinking that the actual revenue isn't 200,000, it's probably going to be closer to half of that, 100,000 or so in fees, after taking into account a directional number of what I think the exemptions will be. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
That was this added information from last meeting.
So how does one get to work through their remittances through Airbnb and not directly to the town? Like, how does that get?
Well, it's a property owner's decision to actually just file the return themselves or actually have Airbnb to
Okay.
actually handle it for them.
But we track both, or both should be compliant, but it's just two different remittance scenarios.
Right, we just don't have the property detail, and we're not getting that from Airbnb's policy is not to share the property detail of who's remitting what. So we don't really know how many days are actually being rented in that second domain. And the people who are non-compliant, we obviously don't know what they're doing. And we're pursuing compliance with those property owners.
So how would you know if those are, like, how would this work, I guess, for those people you don't know the number of nights?
How would I know to,
Like, how do we know as a town, like, which Airbnb remittances, have more than 60 nights or not? Or maybe I missed that part.
we wouldn't, I mean, it would be up to the property owner. If
They'd
they're
have to
wanting,
disclose that.
the presumption would be that they would be subject to the tax and that, or to the fee.
Yeah,
And that if they don't want to be subject to the fee, they'd have to sign an affidavit that they're renting it for less than 60 days.
gotcha, okay.
And that the forms, the way there are forms, the 2025 forms are set up, is that if I was renting through Airbnb, I would say, hey, Doug Pattison, here's my address. I would say what I'm actually renting for, and I would say that the taxes were remitted through VRBO. I'm not paying you anything because they've already been paid. And then the town would have a record of the VRBO, Airbnb property owners of what the actual rate per night was and what the actual rent was.
Gotcha, okay.
Right, but we don't have that information now, is the point.
Because they don't have to, there's no reason for them to
Right.
disclose that. That makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the measures we're taking prospectively to get a better read on this.
Okay. Anybody else have questions for Doug? I just want clarifying questions before we jump over to Jeff next.
I have a question. Are you able, with the limited data that you have, are you able to estimate about how much an STR room is, how much it's generating annually, how much income? Can you tell that from the information?
Well, we know in general, and then this is just generalization. I know what the sales tax generated from lodging is, so I know what that is. And I know that 4% of the lodging receipts equals our lodging revenues, 4%. And that number is about $500,000. Now, that also includes, that 4% also includes the lodging tax at the Element and the Basalt Mountain Inn and
Right.
Aspinall, so, and Roaring Fork Club. So I know what those remittances are. So I would say just in general that directional number is that we are generating off of short-term licenses that aren't exempt because they're a hotel or whatever. That's about $100,000. That's generally what the number is.
Right.
So if everybody stops renting, then you're going to be losing that $100,000. You'd also be losing whatever those people that aren't renting would be spending in town because they're not here. It's like proving a negative, but there'd be fewer people here. So they wouldn't be going to the Whole Foods, they wouldn't be going to Four Dogs, they wouldn't be going to Heather's and whatever.
Right. I'm sorry, I don't think I phrased it right. So I'm just interested in understanding how much, like a single bedroom, how much revenue that generates for the owner of the STR.
Well, I think
Not
depends
like
on, it depends on how many nights they're renting it. I mean, there's a pretty good standard deviation. Like there's like one property here that rented all year for $8,000. Okay? And then there's another property here that rented for something like, I don't know, $56,000. So it really varies depending upon how many nights you're renting.
Okay.
And I don't think we have the data
Right.
in our platform to say this person rented X number of nights.
Right.
Right.
At
So that's
this
the-
point. So
right.
it would be hard to back into the per room rate as a result, I
Right.
think.
Like the $7,800, I don't know how many nights that person rented. But I would do, but I can tell you that if you're only making $7,800 for the year, you're not renting it for more than 60 days.
Right.
So you're gonna qualify for the exemption. And if you're scoring 60,000 in rent, you're probably over 60 days because it looks like the, per bedroom rate is, I don't know, $600-700 on the high end, $800. So you're probably over the 60 days. But I don't know, can't exactly say, because I don't have all the data.
Okay.
And Angela, just as a clarification, our regulations require that you rent an entire unit at a time, not a bedroom on a short-term?
Yeah,
basis?
I know that. I'm just
Okay,
saying if
fair
we're gonna, I'm asking if we're levying a tax or a fee of $25.50 per room.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if you're renting out, short-term renting your 4-bedroom house, how much over the course of a year are those bedrooms making for that owner? Just trying to see how much does that fee actually eat into the profit, that's all.
Sure.
But it sounds like we don't have the data to know that.
Jeff, I think you were going to
Yeah.
speak to the legal elements since last meeting.
Sure, I was just going to provide a little bit more information on distinguishing a fee from a tax and some more information on the STR fees. So a tax is generally used to fund general operating unless it's a restricted tax. And a fee is used to defray the direct and indirect costs of a specific activity. And that fee has to be of an amount that has a reasonable relationship to those costs. And the main case on this issue was the Aspen bag fee case. And so a lot of the analysis on STR fees looks to the law from that case. And so here with an STR fee, the EPS study was done to look at what the impacts were to local workforce housing as a result of short-term rentals and determined what those costs were. And the intent of this ordinance is to defray those costs. So that's the study that kind of establishes what are we talking about here in terms of direct and indirect costs that we are trying to defray the costs of through this fee. And then the amount of the fee is also determined based on that study. And again, it's that reasonable relationship to the costs. And so here we're relying on the study for the data to come up with the fee. And then the third piece is that the use of the revenue from the fee is actually used for defraying those impacts. So in this case, it's restricted to using it for affordable housing related purposes, local workforce housing related purposes. And so that's kind of the overview of the fee structure. Now, there have been around the state a few challenges to STR fees, and there's pending litigation on a few of these. I think there's a few comments that you received that identified a couple of these cases. The one case in which a court ruled against the local government on imposing the STR fee that I'm aware of was in Pagosa Springs. And their big deficiency was there wasn't this nexus study. There wasn't the EPS study done to determine what costs the fee needed to defray. And there's a whole kind of more complicated set of facts in that case because it arose from initiated charter amendment. There's a few other cases that have come up recently, and I'm happy to provide some more detailed information on all this for council, but just briefly, there's a state district court case involving a Breckenridge fee, somewhat similar approach to what the town is taking. The fee they were imposing was lower. There was a challenge in state court arguing that the fee was actually a tax and therefore in violation of Tabor, and also alleging that the fee wasn't reasonable because it didn't account for revenues that are created by persons that are short-term renting, that those revenues should go towards, well, what the costs are of this activity. And on a motion to dismiss from the town, the court dismissed the complaint, basically found, yes, it's a fee, they hit the legislative intent, they got a study to back it up, it's being used for these purposes. And then on the revenue piece, they found that that is not relevant for determining the fee calculation. That is currently being appealed to the Court of Appeals. There are a handful of federal court cases going on now. Another one, excuse me, related to the Breckenridge Ordinance, one related to Summit County, their STR fee, and one related to Telluride's STR fee. The claims there, they're federal claims, so they invoke constitutional issues, so like equal protection, dormant commerce clause, and I've seen a substantive due process claim. And so I just want to briefly talk about the equal protection issue, which is why they're there. Some of the other regulatory approaches that have been taken have tried to create distinct classes of licensees, and then in many cases limit the number of licenses that could be held by a single licensee. Not an overall cap, or in some cases an overall cap, but the issue that I think is problematic is limiting the number of licenses that a licensee can hold. And in 2 of those 3 federal court cases, they have been dismissed on a motion to dismiss by, a successful motion to dismiss by the local government jurisdiction. I'm not sure where the appeals are in those cases. Those happened last summer. And in Telluride case, that's still pending. So there are, obviously legal issues at play which have been challenged or in the process to being challenged. And but again, the regulatory approach that the town is attempting to take here is to kind of hit those 3 main elements to ensure that the fee is properly imposed. But if council did want more information kind of on those legal issues, I'm happy to put that together for a future meeting.
I think I would like to see that.
Yeah.
I'm sure others would as well.
But that was a brief overview.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. We want to make sure we get this right on
Sure.
a lot of fronts, including that one. So, James, anything else that you had as far as?
No, I think generally staff would suggest taking public comment and then discussing it and ultimately just identifying what information you need from us from a future meeting standpoint.
Okay. Yeah, it just, we have a lot of people here, so we're going to get through a lot of comments. And I think this council, based on that, is not going to be opposed to continuing second reading and public hearing. We want to make sure we do get this right and hear everybody out and come up with a solution that makes sense to address the affordability gap, which is the intent of this ordinance. So with that, I will open it up I'll open the public hearing, and just a reminder, state your name, your address, you got 3 minutes, and make sure you sign in at the back of the room as well when you're done. And who wants to go first? The public hearing is open. Go for it.
We accept.
Sorry. Thank you, guys. My name is Matt J., 364 Somerset Way. I'm going to use specific quotes to you guys. I appreciate all your really hard work. It's not like an attack. I just want to reiterate some things that I just heard. Doug mentions, quote, a lot of unknowns. Angela said, limited data we have, and then came in and said, sounds like we don't have the data to know that. So it seems like the first 2 comments I heard when I walked in were lack of knowledge to make a good decision. Again, not attacking you guys. I just, like, if we're going to do this, I'm a product of employee housing. Moved here 20 years ago, rented, then owned in Aspen, then bought a free market house in Aspen, so I support it. I just want to make sure it's done right, because in Aspen, I think there's been problems with how it's been done. I love Basalt. I want to make sure we don't screw it up. Then Ryan, you said, I don't think we have the data. So I just want to make sure this is all on the record multiple times, that multiple people have brought up the concept of there's things that are lacking before we make a decision. And then I'm also just curious, how many complaints have been made about short-term rentals? Is that documented, has been published? Do we know who's making the complaints? Do we know what the complaints are? Are there any other ways to resolve these complaints? Let me see what else. I took notes. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to be organized here. I think that's it. So thank you. Again, thank you guys. I'm not trying to put quotes in your mouth. I just want to reiterate the things that I've heard that cause me to hope that you guys spend more time doing more research and kind of digging in on this, especially when Jeff mentioned multiple points of litigation that could be brought against the town for such a de minimis amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wants to go next?
Hey, everybody. Mayor Knight, council members, my name is Jessica Portmas. I live at 185 Original Road. You have a letter from my husband and I. It's in the agenda tonight. I wanted to put a face to that letter and just reiterate some of the points in that letter, maybe bring a little bit more light and raise a point I think that wasn't in the letter. Apologies, I think I was going off the January 28th agenda text of the regulation, so I want to update that a little bit. As I said in the letter, I live at my home on Original Road with my husband and my 2 kids. We bought our home in January in 2023, and we're really not unlike a lot of families in this valley. We moved here because we wanted to raise our kids here, which makes me emotional still to this moment, in a place that values community and to show them really the wonders of the mountains and the rivers that are so close to us. So we work to support our family. We've worked and saved really hard to buy a piece of this really beautiful place. And while we're not unique in that, I've come to understand that the setup of our particular home is unique in as far as it relates to the proposed short-term rental fee. So I wanted to just raise that very quickly here. We have a detached garage on our property with an accessory dwelling unit that is not deed restricted. We live in the main home on the property full time. I use the ADU as a home office when we don't have renters there. We use it as a guest room when our family comes to visit. And the existence of that ADU really made the purchase of our home possible in the valley, and I mean that sincerely, knowing that it would help with our mortgage and help with our expenses here, including childcare, which is astronomically expensive here. So the proposed fee would have a significant impact on us, and there was a question about how much is that impact, and I put this in the letter, but it bears repeating. This is the first year we're renting our property, but based on our rentals so far and what we project for the rest of the year, we anticipate that the proposed fee plus the $450 licensing fee plus the 4% tax would amount to nearly 20% of our earnings for the year. That's in addition to the state and federal taxes we'll pay on our income. And I would note that in my review of the EPS report, it seemed what was lacking there, and it's been said twice tonight already, is there's an absence of data on the impact of the fee on actual homeowners here. And I want to just reiterate that we are not a rental that rents for $5,000 a night. There are rentals in Basalt that do that, $1,500 a night on the regular, $4,000 to $7,000 a night in the high season. That is absolutely not our ADU. We've priced ourselves to be competitive with far less expensive hotels than the Hoffman and the Element, because we want to bring people to the valley so they can experience what we experience here. So we urge the council in our little letter to broaden the exemption for local residents who rent a portion of their home. My apologies, I would just add that we would urge the council to make that exception apply to our particular circumstances. We don't live in the unit, but it is a unit on our property, and we would ask that you consider that as well.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. So yeah, the buzzer will go off. The buzzer guy here.
Gotta stop with the buzzer. The buzzer's the boss.
Can't argue the buzzer.
Hi there. My name is Mike Waters, and I did write out my comments so I can submit a copy to you all if you'd like. But my home is at 50B River's Edge Court in Basalt. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home, and I purchased in 2016. It is a primary residence. I began using Airbnb to earn extra income like so many other people. And so, when gathering my thoughts regarding how to express my concerns, it's been difficult because there's so many unknowns, like everybody else has said. And I feel that some of the smaller homeowners have the potential to be penalized more than the larger homes that rent for those, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a night. So I do have a modest home, and already taxes and fees. What do I pay? I pay the $460 annual Basalt short-term rental business license. In order to get that, I also do an annual inspection of my heating system, which is rightfully done because it is a gas system, $500 right there. So going back to the amount of the new annual tax or fee, which I sincerely believe is a tax and not a fee, and it is a tax. I've already described the 2 bedrooms, but aside from, I only rent 1 bedroom in my listing on Airbnb. I do give the option for people to add the second room for an additional fee, but I really don't like to do that very much, so I only do it in special cases. Last year, I had about 12 nights of rentals. So one of my questions seems to be, if you're applying this fee based on the number of bedrooms in a home, I have a 2-bedroom home, am I going to get an over $5,000 fee on my 2-bedroom home when I only basically specifically rent it out and list it as a 1-bedroom, and I clear out of the home and I go someplace else? So they have full house access, but then the 2nd bedroom is a lock-off. So I have a question about that. So that's one of the uncertainties. I have a question about like how you're coming up with this 60-night cutoff. I had in 2024, I had $38,000 in rentals, which is significant, but I worked hard for that. So that initial $2,532 regular fee takes another literally 6.7% from what I'm netting. So that's pretty significant. So on top of the 3% sale tax and the 4% lodging tax that I've already paying. So there's a lot here, so I can submit this to you. I know my time's up.
Yeah, that time's up, and you can give that to Pam, and she'll enter that into the record and will give us copies of it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comments.
Do you need a copy of that? Do you need a copy of that?
No, I actually made copies before coming.
Okay, well, I'll give it to Pam.
Who'd like to go next?
Yeah, okay, great. So,
Not me.
All right.
Julie. My name's Julie Wyckoff. I live at 553 East Cypress. I appreciate the thrust of this idea for keeping the neighborhoods in community. But like, and forgive me, what is your name? Jess. It's like Jess said, so many people purchase their property, including myself, based on the opportunity to do a short-term rental. And there were no fees. At this point, I feel that there's a rule change that no one anticipated, and that sets me back a little bit. I think the thrust of some of this may come from discouraging speculators to come in, buy property, and rent them short-term. But $2,500 a bedroom, they have the opportunity to factor that into their investment, where all the versions of the same boat that have been doing this didn't have that opportunity. Also, I'm not sure, I can't believe I'm gonna say this. Beep, beep, beep. I'm not sure about this $2,500 a room fee. You've got, as Jess said, the $7,000 a night, and then you've got, the $100 a night. We're all paying the same thing. Doesn't really commute, but the part that doesn't compute for me is it's not enough to discourage people from coming in and purchasing homes or turning their homes into Airbnb. Which leaves, and I'll leave you with my question. If anybody figures in this information gathering period that the $2,500 enough a room isn't a discouragement, I'm not sure I want to hear that it's more. So, anyway, good job, goodbye.
Thank you for your comments. Who would like to go next?
Stacy Kraft. I live at 411 Elk Circle. We have a very real worker housing crisis in this valley, but short-term rentals are not the problem. A search on VRBO for short terms in Basalt reveals 23 properties. Many of them are single-family homes, not condos. The owners furnish these expensive homes with nice furniture and art. The owners use these homes throughout the year, and they are not solely used by vacationers. These are homes that would never have been offered to long-term renters. They simply do not reduce the amount of long-term rentals for locals. Arguably, condos that are rented as short-term units may impact the local rental housing market and inventory, but a lot of homeowners associations do not permit short-term rentals, so there are not many of those either. There are a lot of misconceptions about short-term rentals, and as a full-time broker in this valley for 20 years, I'd like to dispel some of these. We've all heard about fancy homes that rent for exorbitant rates in the summer. These are anomalies. They might get $2,000 or $3,000 a night for those. It's like this many houses. Owners only get rates like that in July and August. That is not an average number, and it's not an accurate reflection of what homeowners are actually profiting. When a homeowner asks me about renting short-term, I prepare a conservative rental analysis for them, and I'll give you that to you guys, so that they can know what they can actually expect to make. This is an analysis on a $2.5 million home. There are a ton of deductions. VRBO lops off 8% of your rental right off the top. Property managers, maintenance managers are expensive, and you guys require that for short-term renters, that somebody has to be responsible for those properties. Utilities and trash, $7,200. The short-term license is $800 with the plumbing report. Landscaping and pests, $2,500, $7,500 for maintenance. Property taxes, $10,000. You add on that the $7,500 fee or tax that you're proposing, and a homeowner might profit $4,100 a month if they rent 180 days a year, and that's before they pay income tax. This is not the cash cow for owners that a lot of people think it is. These 3 and 4 bedroom homes are rented to grandparents who invite their kids and grandkids to share it. During a 1-week stay, this family would hire a fly fishing guide, eat mini meals in our Basalt restaurants, shop in our stores and groceries. This 1-week rental would pump at least $5,000 into the locals who've come 3, 4, 5 times to stay at my properties because they love Basalt, and we should be encouraging them to stay here. Can I just say one more thing? I'm a parent. The housing crisis has affected my children too. We need to build high-density rental units. That's the solution, not beating up short-term rentals. Thanks.
Thanks, Stacy, for your comments. Let's go ahead and take one online. Those folks always go last. Like, we gotta give them some love here. Let's start at the top with Andrea C.
Andrea, if you'd like to make comments to the council, please unmute and go ahead and speak.
Okay, I just lost my screen. Here we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Cutter. I'm at 412 Lakeside Drive in Basalt. I'm a 30-year resident of the Roaring Fork Valley. I'm a caregiver to seniors and dementia patients in our community. I'm a single-income, full-time homeowner of 24 years. I rent out a 1-bedroom efficiency Airbnb on the ground floor of my townhome out of necessity. This regulatory fee should be exempt to people living full-time year-round in their homes. Again, I rent out of necessity. An additional $2,500 per year will put me out. The income I receive through Airbnb is necessary to cover my mortgage, taxes, utilities, repairs, etc. Income from Airbnb makes living in this valley affordable for me. I finally didn't have to struggle to get my bills paid when I started Airbnb. Penalizing full-time homeowners who run STRs is not the answer. Essentially, it would put me back in the housing crisis. If imposed, the regulatory fee will put me out of business and back to a stressed way of living. I rented 166 nights in 2024. 2025 is projected to be less nights because I had to raise my nightly rate to cover the $460 annual permit fee, the 4% tax imposed by the town of Basalt, etc. January 2025 has already proved to be half the income of what I brought in January of 2024. 50 short-term rental licenses in Basalt paying the new regulatory fees a small fraction of what the Affordable Housing Committee is trying to achieve. Perhaps looking at investment properties and vacation homes, they don't live full-time in the unit. They are not renting out of necessity like I am. From an economic perspective, if the new regulatory fee is passed, the town will make less money than expected. Hosts like me that make less than $2,000 per month will A, choose to only rent within the 60-day annual exempt time frame. That's easily 100 nights less than 2024. B, we will be forced to raise our nightly rate, which means a slowing of the economy, fewer visitors renting from us, which trickles down to less guests patronizing local restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, gift shops, ski areas, guide services, etc. Tourists are looking for short-term rentals as an affordable way to visit the Roaring Fork Valley. Talk about pricing out. This area will not be accessible to the average visitor. Nobody returns to a restaurant that has astronomical prices. The restaurant loses money and goes out of business. C, we pull out of short-term rental altogether because this new fee is bad business and Basalt will receive zero income from us. A bigger loss in the long run. Please consider my perspective and others like me that cannot rent to full-time tenants. The impact of this fee will be devastating for my livelihood in the Roaring Fork Valley. Losing the short-term rental income may push me out of my home and the valley altogether. I'm proposing an exemption of this new
Thank
fee
you.
to full-time.
You're at time. I don't know if you heard if you can hear the.
Okay, or at least a minimum of 180 night per year exemption. Thank you.
It's hard. You probably can't hear the clock, but it went off. I appreciate your comments, though. Let's take one more from online, please.
Yeah, next we have Richard Mason. Richard, if you would like to speak to the council, please unmute and go ahead and speak.
Yes. Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Richard Mason, 104 Lodgepole Circle. I'm actually from Summit County. Was asked to be here because I've spent, I'm a business process data analyst by trade. I've spent about 2,500 volunteer hours over the last 3 years working to dispel a number of short-term rental false narratives, and there's a ton of them out there. And also helped to organize private vacation rental owners both locally here in Summit County and statewide. I have a particular interest in this. Breckenridge was the first one to implement this type of fee from EPS, and like a prominent business owner in Eagle County told me last year, he said, all the bad ideas start in Summit County, which is, I think, 100% true, and my apologies to everyone in the audience for inflicting you guys with this thing. I think it's best that the town delay. I think, what I heard at the beginning of the meeting is, maybe you guys will delay this for a couple weeks. I sent you all a massive amount of information earlier today. I just found out about this a short time ago, but I put together a massive amount of information for you guys to look at, which includes my analysis. There's an RRC Associates analysis, 130-page report detailing everything in Pitkin County. I heard a lot of questions like, what's the average rate getting per bedroom, and a bunch of other things. It's all in that 130-page report that RRC did last February, so it's only a year old. A couple things from that analysis that I want to highlight. Page 7 says a lot of the people you're hearing here, 90% of short-term rentals in Pitkin County are owned where the owner only has one, basically. So that there's not a lot of corporations or people coming in with multiples STRs. Page 10 shows no growth in the number of STRs since January 2018. basically, and that's active STRs. I think what's happened is, as there's been more and more regulation discussions, people get licenses just to have them. So that's a big thing in Summit County. 20% of our licenses in Summit County aren't even used. People got them just for insurance. Page 49 shows that there's basically no impact to housing affordability or the run-up in housing costs related to Dickinson County. So those are all things from that report. Really, really valuable report. A couple of the legal things, I can't see a timer or anything, just let me know if I'm going over. I could talk for 2 hours on this. Legal issues with the EPS study specifically, they call it a nexus, but they're trying to draw, I believe, a nexus between, and that's what the fee is supposed to cover, between housing unaffordability or the high cost of housing and STRs. Well, as you heard, there's not been a proliferation of STRs.
Hey, Rich,
And that nexus doesn't exist.
you're at time,
Yes.
Rich.
Oh, wow, already. Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing, I just want to point out,
What?
Vail just last week.
I'm sorry, yeah, we
No.
got to cut it off.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, thank you for your comments and the letter you sent in and all the materials. Appreciate it. Let's do one more online, then we'll come back into the room. Trevor.
Hi, Trevor. If you'd like to make comments, please unmute and go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Trevor Benduzen at 23284 Two Rivers Road, number 8. I'm a short-term rental owner, but before I was a short-term rental owner there, I was a 10-year resident in Basalt at that unit. The reason that I short-term rent is because I like to return to Basalt pretty regularly because I love the town so much. It had become my home. I have family there. I have friends there. I love the community. I love the Wednesday night concerts, everything about Basalt. And if I were to long-term rent, I can't return and enjoy the town that I love so much. In the last council meeting, I heard a little bit of rhetoric that maybe there's some thought that short-term rental is more lucrative or more profitable than long-term rental. For me, that's not the case. I've done the math, and I could have made about $20,000 more in a year by long-term rental. It's my choice to make less money because I want to return to Basalt and enjoy my property there. I wanted to highlight a few things. I think as Richard was starting to say, the town of Vail very recently rejected their per bedroom fee proposal based on an EPS study because of the potential for legal ramifications. In 2022, Aspen also forgo that after their EPS study because of the same thing. I noticed a few what I think are flaws in the EPS study that I think it's important for the council's attention to have. First, EPS study is all based on visitor spending data, and that data came from an Aspen Chamber Resort Association report for the city of Aspen, not for the town of Basalt. The EPS study tried to use inclusionary language saying the Aspen area, the Aspen region. However, if you look at the actual ACRA report, it has zero indication that that spending report is for anything other than the city of Aspen. Another thing that I realized looking through on the final page of the EPS study, kind of in the upper portion of grouping of numbers, it seems to add up a series of numbers on guest spending. And I noticed there's a flaw in the math there. It says 2,329.7, but by my calculation, that number should be 961.9. So I fear that the EPS recommendation of the annualized fee might be inflated by over double. I think it's important that the council knows that, and I think I was reading through a BOC meeting from January 23rd. I believe in the minutes there was a comment that in the affordable housing fee in lieu study from EPS, I think there was a comment there that said there was that EPS made a slight error in their calculation methodology.
Thanks, Trevor.
That there's more errors.
Trevor, appreciate your comments and sending in the letter. Yeah, you had 3 minutes, so appreciate it. Let's go back
Thank
to
you
the.
very much.
You're welcome. Let's go back to the room. Anybody would like to come up to the podium here, make some comments?
Okay, Mayor, Council, good evening. My name is Marco Dame. I live in 1112 Volts Avenue, Glenwood Springs. Tonight I'm here in my capacity as part owner of Keeling Vacation Rentals. We are a local management company. For 10 years now, we've been successful in the whole valley, up and down the valley, Summit County, and the Grand River Valley. I had a completely different narrative, but what I heard tonight changed my mind on a lot of things. The litigation aspect and the $100,000 that you guys are getting at this point concerns me. The litigation, because it's out there, it can happen. The $100,000 will go away if you impose that fee, because short-term rentals will shut down. They will all go away because $2,500 per bedroom is too much. If you need to raise a fee, look at Carbondale. Look at our neighbors. $100 to $175 per bedroom is a lot more doable as a big short-term rental owner. But more than anything, I would like to separate affordable housing and short-term rentals. Those two don't correlate together whatsoever. If you guys need a housing fund or an affordable housing fund, a ballot measure, a reallocation of your 4% accommodation tax, an additional accommodation tax. I know it's a heavy lift. You got to go in front of people. It's a vote. I get it. Allocate those funds. Glenwood passed 2.5% over a year ago. We make $1.7 million a year. It's a good deal. You guys can do the same. That's money. $100,000 is a drop in the bucket when it comes to affordable housing. So I would highly recommend that you do not talk short-term rentals when you talk affordable housing. Do not hold the short-term rentals accountable to pay for affordable housing. It's two different things. One is not here to pay for the other. It's not possible. It's not realistic to generate the funds from short-term rentals to pay for affordable housing. With that, and I know I have time left, but I'm not using it up. I'm usually on that side. I know how it goes. Please do not continue this. Table this and start from scratch. Thank you.
Slow clap. Thanks for the comments.
You can clap till the buzzer goes off.
30 more seconds if you want. You need to standing around.
You got time.
Let's go back online, and Bonnie has her hand up.
I hope so.
Bonnie, if you'd like to speak to the council, if you want to unmute and go ahead and speak.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I own a townhome in Willits.
Bonnie, could you give us your
Lakeside
full
Drive,
name?
Sorry.
Full name and address.
Scott.
Thanks.
Scott, 414 Lakeside Drive in Willits. I own a 3-bed, 3-bath, 1,400 square foot townhome, which I purchased in 2001. I live there with my 2 teenage boys who attend Basalt High School. I have shared custody with their father for half the year. So when my kids aren't with me, I rent out their rooms. I have them keep it totally generic in there, put all their stuff away so I can earn some extra money and use my asset to rent it out when my boys aren't around. I'm a single mom. I don't receive child support, so this income is really important to me. I can't have roommates, to help out the housing situation in our valley. This is the only way I can do it. I think somebody on the town council asked about how much we're netting. Last year I collected approximately $16,000 in SCR income, which is about $1,300 a month. But if you guys impose all of these fees, I would be paying about $6,000 a year. So I would only net $10,000 for all the headache of renting my home. I only rented it 56 days last year, only because I had some health issues and couldn't rent it more. But in other years, I've rented it a lot longer, probably 100 to 130 days. So for me, I would appreciate it if you do move forward with all this, that you extend the exemption for the number of rental days to be increased to 180 days or more. And also, of course, have people, live in the valley, I think is a smart idea. I mean, we already pay all the fees you guys, everybody else has listed. And I think that's plenty for just such a small business that I'm trying to run just to support my 2 kids in this valley. So that's kind of all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, anyone in the room want to come up and make, yes, please.
Hi, my name's Scott Bartlett. I live at 200 East Homestead. I've been a resident here for a long time, off and on, and I have a 2-bedroom unit as part of my house. The reason I chose the short-term rented was I have family and friends coming over here from Australia rather than the long-term rented, so that gives me the flexibility to do that. I'm sure there's a lot of other people here also who enjoy that flexibility. To give you some idea about how much I get from that, I rent it for around 100 days a year at $300 a night. So that answers your question, Angela, about roughly how much. It's an average 2-bedroom house in the middle of Old Town, so it's $300 a night. I think I read somewhere that the planner had based some of their assumptions on an average of $500 or more a night. So I don't think that's really correct. So I earn $30,000 roughly a year at $100 a night. So after taxes, that obviously another additional $5,000 has a big impact. So I just want to give you some idea from my perspective, and most people's perspective, I think. They're not earning a lot of money, they're just doing it for some flexibility and some extra income. So that's it.
Appreciate your comments, thanks.
Thanks very much.
Who else would like to come up and speak? Is there anyone else online? I don't see any more hands raised. Anyone online? If you want to speak, go ahead and raise your hand.
Are you just standing, Chris, or just?
No, I want to give online a chance.
Oh. No one's stepping up online, so you want to come up here?
I'm still in the ski gear from our event. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Matera, President and CEO of the Basalt Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to add potentially some additional context to the data sources. The guest spending report from ACRA, prepared by Destination Analysis, is based on a survey of individuals. The Colorado Tourism Office uses what they call the Dean Runyon report, and that is kind of considered the standard within the tourism industry in terms of the economic impact of visitors to our area. We have data from 2022 specific to the Roaring Fork Valley, and I can pull at least Pickens County for 2023. The one thing I cannot do is I don't have the total numbers based on what Tableau is showing me right now live to see the total number of visitors to the area to divide it out to get you that daily rate, but it does break down based on accommodations, food, entertainment, all different sectors of the economy to see the economic impact of visitors. Just to help add additional context to these numbers of what is going on. My gut is saying that these data sources from ACRA is under what we're probably actually seeing the economic impact of, but again, if council would like or staff, I can work with the Colorado Tourism Office to get that information for you so you can have a greater set of data for your decision making. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Anyone else? Anyone else online? Last call online, last call in the room. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. A lot of great comments. We went from being about 15 minutes ahead to 10 minutes behind, which I was kind of expecting. So like I said before, I am going to recommend we continue, but I would like to give everybody a chance to kind of react, speak, make their comments, and maybe some direction for staff before the next meeting if we choose to go that direction. So I'll go ahead and open it up.
I'd just like to clarify for Jess, Andrea, Bonnie, folks who are renting a part of their primary residence. My understanding is that if you're renting your primary residence, you're excluded from the fee as we determined last time, or is that not the case?
Only if you're renting for fewer than 60 days, according to how it's currently written in the proposed ordinance.
Okay, yeah.
I have comments. So I would like to get back to my question about, what rooms are netting annually versus the fee. My question was answered, although that would be nice to have. I appreciate that Jeff answered my question that that's not a part of the nexus, and that the reason we're looking at this fee, and it is a fee, not a tax, because it's not based on what that room is generating. So I do feel like we closed the loop on that conversation. A couple of other things, and I speak from personal experience. I have an ADU at my home that also helps my family and I afford to live in the valley. It helped us afford to build our home. And I think that maybe people are confused. There's a difference between renting out your home long-term, a year lease, that continues, and you can never get in your house again. So I'm not allowed to rent my ADU through an STR because of my homeowners association. But I am able to rent it out for a month or more to different people, a lot of traveling nurses, ski co-employees, things like that. I'm still able to make it available for friends and family. I was able to have it available when my mother-in-law needed to come live with us for cancer treatment. I do very well with my ADU, and I have done all of it by, hustling, using websites that travel nurses use, finding people that are coming through the valley. I have never once not been able to fill it when I needed to fill it, and I have never once had to use Airbnb or VRBO and break the rules of my HOA. So I just want people out there to know, if you do enjoy using your home, from time to time, or you do want to make extra income, you can completely do that without an STR. I've now taken my family on 2-month-long vacations internationally, and by renting out my entire home. So there's a lot of flexibility for people that are really needing to make income off of their residence or their ADU. So I just want to say that, because I know myself that that's really important. The other thing I'd like to say is I don't really see, these folks in the STRs that we currently have in the valley as a problem. I don't see that they're causing the affordable housing issue or they're causing people to not be housed. My concern is, what does it look like if we don't start imposing some measures to slow that growth? What does it look like 10 years from now? I worry about having more and more and more STRs. I don't think where we're at now is in the danger zone by any means. But I do worry that if we don't put measures in place and the barrier to entry is so low that, 10 or 15 years from now, we could be in a bad situation. And I think that's all I have for now.
I'll go. I want to thank everyone for coming to speak out. I really appreciate when people come in person, when people sign in online. There's a lot of times we're up here by ourselves. So thank you for coming to participate. I appreciate everyone's passion. I think the basic idea on this law is a good one, but I think there's a lot of unintended consequences, and there is a lot of data missing that we should go back and look at and go through. Just comparing it to other municipalities in the area, I mean, we're scaling at a very high rate that is, after listening to everyone and going through a lot of the numbers, I think it is a little too high and we need to go back to the drawing board. But I also think as a community, we need to have a conversation about short-term rentals. I think the idea of this is to make it a fee so that many of our homes are not being turned into commercial properties. So I think the thought process on this is the right idea, but how we execute it is going to be very important. And so I would encourage us as a council to put a pause or to table this. And I don't think tabling it to March 11th is enough for all the data we need to really dig into this. So that's my encouragement.
So I agree with Ryan wholeheartedly on tabling this until we can truly get all the data to make an informed decision. For me, it comes down to a couple of things, one of which is simply the numbers. I did model all of this with a whole bunch of different assumptions that you can put in, and 2532 is just high. In one of the assumptions of the model, I can lower that fee, and it brings us more in line with, from what I can tell, is as a percentage of revenue, what is average across neighboring communities is about 15%, which would include STR and lodging fees. So we can slice this a couple ways. We can either lower the fee, we can go to the voters and increase the lodging tax, which applies this more equitably across all visitors and not just targeting short-term visitors. I'm not saying that's 100%, don't quote me on that. I'm just saying that's one of the things I feel that we should look at. I haven't seen enough data, speaking of data, to support that STRs are overwhelmingly responsible for a lot of what we're suffering, but I also do think that there has to be, it is a nexus. There is some economic impact, negative economic impact that we see from all visitors. It does put stresses on our resources. More staff is needed to service them, but they do bring a lot of economic impact. I personally need more data to find out what is that. For me, $100,000 is not enough benefit to justify this ordinance as it's written. I personally really don't like the idea of robbing Peter to pay Paul, which is how I see imposing a fee on people that are currently living here and struggling to do so and need this income to do so in order to then create more housing. I don't agree with that idea. To me, that's robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I think, like a lot of us here, I would like a lot more data on specifically, I also don't believe that if we impose this fee, I think that people are either going to pull their STRs, so we're not going to see the economic benefit. And I don't think those bedrooms are necessarily going to go into the long-term pool, because that's what we've seen across the country, is that it typically doesn't happen that way. So I don't believe it's direct correlation. More data, more time, more input from more people like you. Thank you for the time you spent. And I would think a little more equitable way to raise those funds. I think that we all agree that the funds need to be raised. We need to solve the issue. I don't think that this ordinance is the solution to do that.
Thanks for the comments.
Cool. I agree with my fellow council members. I think there's just not enough data to make an informed decision. I thank everybody for showing up in the room to give us their stories and their 2 cents on the matter. I do think there is an issue, and it's the ones we're probably not hearing about that I think is what we're trying to address, that we're not hearing from without these stories. But we just need more information across the board. I love for Brian to kind of circle back with some of the comments that he must have been jotting notes about, folks kind of indicating where the math is coming from on some of these. There's just not, I don't think, not enough information to move forward in a intelligent way.
All right.
I think this is the right idea. We had talked about last council meeting how Basalt used to be a place with over 90% occupancy, and now that's under 80%, and we lost over 10% of our housing stock in 5 years. And so I think the goal of a policy like this is to use it with a host of other policies, like supporting buy-down programs, like supporting affordable housing development, to make sure that we're not an empty town. And I think when I hear stories like from folks who are renting their primary residence to be able to stay full-time residents here, I find that very compelling. I think that should be allowed and carved out from the fee. I do think that the employment generated by an STR is something I'm aware of, that we're essentially using a home as a commercial space that creates needs for employment in a way that, you know, other businesses pay fees, they pay taxes, they're paying into things that are benefiting affordable housing. Maybe we need to relook at the numbers, maybe we need to look at the timing on this, but I think that idea that businesses generating employment contribute to some of those issues that employment generates, like lack of affordable housing, traffic, people coming from way down valley, I think that's the right idea of this. I think my other thoughts have kind of been said, but a piece of this is trying to tip the scale from short-term renting to long-term renting, and I understand some folks aren't gonna do that, and that's all right, but then we're not adding on to the scale of needing more employees, young people, you know, people were willing to work on homes, clean them, feed them in coffee shops and restaurants. Like, I think regardless if that home isn't occupied by a long-term rental, that home is still not generating that employment need. That's something I'm pretty aware of, because I feel like the balance in our town as it stands isn't feeling right to folks.
All right. Thank you for those comments. I'll just make a few quick comments. Thanks to Doug and Jeff for the additional commentary and on the financials and the legal aspect. You know, like I said, I would like to see some of those other case summaries, including the pending ones. That was pretty interesting. And also, thanks for all the comments here today. And it's always good to have the narrative along with the data that you do have and kind of fuse all that together to make the best decision. You know, and I just want to remind everybody that the goal of this ordinance is to address the affordability gap. It's not from short-term rental specifically. Like, our intent is not, and what the way staff has drafted this ordinance, is not to solve the housing crisis, to do something punitive, something along those lines. There is an affordability gap of some degree that is created by any kind of tourism, and short-term rentals is one of those. So I think that's what we're trying to get our arms around. I personally would rather see rentals be long-term, but that's not the intent of this ordinance. Like, I think carrots and different tools, kind of like what Hannah alluded to. We need a lot of different policies and basically tools in the toolbox, to use that analogy, to do the overall goals and to reach those overall goals and objectives around affordable housing that you'd like to do. And so as far as longer-term rentals, I don't want to try to dissuade people from doing their short-term rentals on this. I just want to make sure that we figure out a way to capture some of that cost back to address the affordability gap. So it's a little more of a narrow focus. I just want to make sure clear on that. Because these short-term rentals do create a demand for workforce. And there's, as far as the legal nexus and EPS's study, you know, any time you do something like this, there's going to be assumptions. And there's a lot of math, and there's a lot of assumptions. I think what we need to do as a council, though, is kind of coalesce around what are the assumptions that we agree upon and what do we not really agree upon, and land in a place where we're all kind of apples to apples doing things out the same way. So I would, you know, if there's an assumption we're making, you know, let's try to raise that up and make sure that we're all on the same page with that as far as kind of what we're doing with the model. What else do I have here? Yeah, but basically, though, I just want to make sure we're addressing this aspect of the affordable housing issue, not the whole thing. We're never going to do it. It's not, for all the reasons you guys said. I would, though, like I said, like to continue this and look at some other options for meeting that affordability gap, and to see what else might be available kind of in a menu of options, and I'll kind of defer to staff how much time you need. We can obviously, just from a procedural standpoint, we can continue this second reading and public hearing until next meeting, and continue to do so until such time as staff has, sufficient time to do everything they need to get this done. Because it's, I think, above all, with any of this stuff, I mean, for two reasons, it's important to get this very, very right. This is your livelihood, at least partly, most of you, right? And then also, our affordable housing crisis in this valley is not going away in this town. Like, we have to start getting ahead of some of this stuff. Otherwise, it's just gonna get worse. And I know that's not all on your backs, and I hope you guys all understand that we don't think, at least I'm speaking for myself, and I don't think my fellow counselors are like upset about, I stay in short-term rentals when I go places. I just think we have to figure out how to do it correctly, as far as the fees and things like that, so it's equitable, so it's effective, et cetera. So I think spending more time on it would be good, if we can get kind of that menu of options, like for instance, looking at wherever the page is on, the memo of the other jurisdictions that are in the valley and comparable, like what if we, compared, kind of modeled it out under those different scenarios? What would that look like? What would the impacts be? I think there's a lot of knobs and levers here that we can do. I think another one I heard was, what do we do with the 60-day limit? And also just, should we consider that anybody as their primary residence, that they can be exempt? I think we need to look at all those options. Let's see, what else do I have? I just want to make sure I get all this on the record. Oh, yeah, and I would like to, if you guys could look into whatever Chris has for data. I don't know procedurally how that might work with what EPS did, but I think that would be important to look into that. And do I have anything else? Yeah, percentage-based fees, all those other models, kind of like as far as what our options might be. Because again, it's about the outcome, which is about affordable housing, but narrowly with this one, addressing the gap created by the demand from all of you guys and your businesses and bringing people here, which is a good thing, but we need to make sure we're accounting for that as far as how we manage that impact. So those are my comments. And I don't know if anybody has anything else, but otherwise I would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing and second reading until February 25th, 2025, for ordinance number 3.
I have a question for Jeff. Since it seems like we're more going for a wholesale rewrite of this ordinance, is it better just to vote this down and start over? Because if we're just continuing this, what is the...
You have a few...
We're going to rewrite the whole language, and then it's basically, we're basically going after a new resolution, not this one, is at least what
I mean, I've heard a few different things.
I mean, if we're gonna look at more data from additional sources, and we find that data confirms what we already have in front of us, are we still gonna start over from scratch?
Well, I mean, it's still, I mean, they can cut and paste this one, but I just think it's not, I mean, if we're tweaking each individual element of it, I personally don't think this is what we're gonna end up with. And so I would say just start over, but it's.
I don't know if they're there yet to make that call. Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
See, it depends on which direction you want to go. And so, like, if there's still an intent to explore amendments to this ordinance, for example, some of the ones I heard were looking at the exemption period, looking at the amount of the fee. So if you want to look at those things under this ordinance, continuing it to allow for those amendments to be considered is an option. If you're to the point where where Ryan is at is, I want to stop here, I want to see different ways we could address this issue, whether it be by a tax, whether it be through this fee, whether it be through something else we're not looking at, then through a policy discussion, then direct staff to go prepare the legislation, the ordinance, or take it to a vote. Then it might be more appropriate to not just continue this, but it kind of depends on where, the majority of you are at. So perhaps continuing once to give yourselves time to consider
that more, where, you know, where you are at, if you are still considering this ordinance, just need additional information if it's more of a, you know, let's start over on our approach to the issue.
I'm still considering this ordinance because of the nexus, because we can tie it to, this is the impact, this is the cost, this is how we're, you know, repairing that. I don't want to start over on another ordinance. And also, you know, to what Hannah was saying, I don't think any of us up here are naive enough to think that, like, we're going to vote for this ordinance and that's going to solve the whole issue. I am not looking for a silver bullet ordinance to solve this issue. I think that would be negligent of us as council members to think that we're going to do this and it's going to solve all the problems. It's not. This is just a tool in the toolkit, and so I'm really not ready to abandon the ordinance altogether.
Yeah, I think on affordable housing, we need the buckshot, not the silver bullet, and this fee deals with a small slice of it. This fee works to offset the employment impact generated by short-term rentals and the housing implications that has. So I'm comfortable getting more data, and then once we have that data, we can look at it and decide whether we want to proceed or not. But I'd be comfortable continuing.
So where I go with that is, so let's say, just completely hypothetically, we revise the exemption so that anything that's completely 100% resident occupied is exempt from any fee. That takes down how many out of the pool, right? Of what we've already determined from Doug at the beginning of the meeting was $100,000 of revenue to the town. And then let's say we also amend the amount a little bit. Let's say we knock it down to $2,000 to bring the overall, like I said, percentage of revenue that you're taking then, including the regulatory fee, the business license, and the lodging and sales tax, to bring it more in line with all the comparable communities. So then you say, okay, let's make the wild a guess that we've knocked our revenue down to $50,000. Then where I go with that is going, okay, well, is that $50,000 of gained revenue from this ordinance worth, how much sales tax revenue are we going to lose from people pulling the STRs off the market because of this? And that is some of the data that I would like to see. I want to see that correlation. So is then the $50,000 gained from this ordinance with some tweaks to it worth the loss in corresponding sales tax revenue that we're not getting because those visitors aren't coming because people have thus pulled their STRs off the market?
I think that's a good question to find that inflection point of how much is short-term rental fee benefiting the town versus sales tax. And I think another question along that lines of thinking is how much employment is generated, and employment is really a proxy for housing, affordable housing need generated by short-term rentals versus existing businesses where that other sales tax would be coming from.
And I certainly understand, obviously, the purpose of this ordinance was the nexus, right? Was the correlation of SDR specific guests, not lodging guests, not all visitors, but short-term rental visitors, and that negative impact on the housing. And I, of course, agree that we're going to have to use all the tools in the toolbox to even begin to chip away at our problem. But I feel like everything that we do, every ordinance we pass, every fee, everything is somewhat puts like a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and that might hinder any future efforts we might try to make. And so that's why part of me leans towards saying, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it big and bold and increase lodging tax across the board and raise $2 million a year instead of $50,000. Because again, I'm not saying that I would necessarily like propose or vote for that. I'm just thinking in hypotheticals. you
Yeah,
know?
and those are the kind of things we need to figure out, like, and I think, James, this is your agenda item, and I think we've given some direction here on some of the different scenarios, so the amounts, the lodging tax rates, all that, I think we need to look at that, and, ultimately, like, is the juice worth the squeeze for the way it is here, if we tweaked it, or would it be better to go with a wholesale, I'm not saying you're the lodging tax guy, but if you model that, and be like, that makes a lot more sense, that's great, let's look at that. But we're not gonna be able to solution it here tonight, obviously. I think it would be, like I said in beginning of my comments, we really wanna get this right for you guys and for our affordable housing issue that we have here in the Mid-Valley. So,
But so far,
let's take a look.
So far, to me, it doesn't hear like there's a reason to toss this out in the garbage and
Correct.
start over again. It sounds like we put it up on the blocks because if you want to raise income tax,
Well, it's a
adding
completely
a
separate-
fee or adding a lodging tax doesn't, you can add a fee. You're still going to have to go to the voters because I suspect that is also going to be a tool in the toolbox. They're exclusive a little bit, I think. This is a ordinance, we're trying to figure out what these STR, short-term fee is. But we know that there's gonna be a bunch of these tools coming our way we're gonna have to look at, one of which is an increase in a hotel tax.
But if we increase lodging tax, then do we just leave this fee? Is this fee written forever? I just think my problem with continuing this is that we should give it more than just next meeting. Because all these people, there's more information that we need than just 2 weeks.
Right.
I personally feel. I feel like there's a lot more digging that we can do and see what we have some models from other communities. I also question this idea, I get I feel like there's a narrative that short-term rentals create all this more work when a lot of houses around here, like my big thing for short-term rentals that I see is they need turnover, they need maids. But a lot of people around here have maids. So like, what else is that short-term rental generating that we're saying it creates that many more employees if it's only rented 100 days a year and it's flipped this many times and someone else has their house cleaned once or twice a week? What is that difference of, this external employee that we're creating and that everyone relies on in all these studies? I would like to dig more into that because I feel like it's something that's just always thrown out there of they create so many more employees when, if you're living in your house, you're doing about as much wear and tear as a short-term rental. I get sometimes they're.
Or more specifically to this, that's a good data point to look for, is the employee generation from an STR versus a hotel, because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at putting this fee up against just STRs and not other visitors, not other lodging, and not, like me living in my house and having a housekeeper once a week. But that's a very valid point, is how much, as compared to other lodging, how many more employees are generated from STRs.
And so, we're not gonna be able to solution this tonight. I think we need to, get some more data. And I don't wanna sink the ordinance tonight, because I don't think that does us any good one way or the other, bless you. But you have the direction that you need, James?
Yeah, I think, we've got some direction. I think it might make sense to, if you're looking at continuing the current public hearing and ordinance, that you might look at continuing it to April or sometime in there, because there's a lot of ask here of staff to look at modeling and data and different aspects. Is that agreeable to?
Is that procedurally cool for you?
Staff?
Yeah. If we pick a date certain, we can continue it to that date. And it's going to take some time to put this information together. So if you want to keep this ordinance live, so to speak, that first meeting in April is
the 8th.
Yeah.
So I would entertain continuing the ordinance number 3 series of 2025 on second, in the public hearing and second reading until April 8th, 2025. That's, my suggestion would be if that's, and we can always look at that later, that date when we're closer to it, see where you guys are.
We do have an existing motion on the floor, and then you guys went into discussion.
No, I don't think.
No, I just asked if it was,
Yeah.
which is
I don't
better
think I
in
don't
this
think anyone brought
ordinance.
it
I didn't
forward.
make a motion.
I thought initially somebody did
David
make a motion.
teed up a motion, but
Nobody
nobody moved it.
Yeah.
Nobody
I'm trying to bait everybody to move into the next part of the agenda here.
Mayor, I move the town council table, or continue the public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 3, series of 2025 to April 8th.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for,
Thank you.
No, you can't. You can't. No, you can email. You can send an email.
I'll come
No,
talk to you after, tomorrow.
no.
Yeah, we,
Yeah,
Please
be an
email us.
email. Thank you, guys.
We have a flawed system.
That's, please email us.
Yeah.
Please email us.
We have a system
can't-
of 3
everyone can't
minutes.
Yell at the meeting.
3 minutes.
I'm sorry.
yeah.
We appreciate your thought. Well, email us and we will get back to you. I promise, Stacy, you have my phone number. You can call me.
I'm definitely gonna call you tomorrow. I owe her a call back for something else.
You know, it's like, I know it's not good for the community, but
all
we're
right.
gonna do it. I know I'm not supposed to talk longer than
Let's
3
keep,
minutes.
let's
but
keep
we need to.
motoring, because it's, unless anybody really needs a break. Okay.
That's how I feel.
Next item up is item 6C, resolution number 3, series of 2025. A resolution of the town council of the town. Hey, guys, if
Yeah, hey.
hey, guys, if you want to, don't mind if you hang out and talk, but if you could just take it out of the room, that would be fantastic. 6C, resolution number 3, series of 2025, a resolution of the town council of the town of Basalt, Colorado, adopting a policy regarding the use of gas-powered leaf blowers on town property. Michelle.
All right. So the Basalt Green Team is recommending the town council consider a ban on the use of combustion leaf blowers on town property. Combustion leaf blowers are defined as any leaf blower that is powered by gasoline or oil. The Green Team recognizes the significant negative impacts that combustion leaf blowers have on environmental pollution and public health. As electric-powered leaf blowers become more commonplace, the Green Team believes the time is appropriate to support a cleaner version of this lawn care equipment staple. I won't read the entire memo here, but combustion leaf blowers are powered by a two-stroke engine mixing gas and oil. A 2018 study by the Air California Resource Board indicates that operating a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour generates as much pollution as driving a small car over 1,000 miles. Pollution generated by these devices has been linked to ailments such as asthma, poor mental health, cancer, and more. To date, over 150 cities across the nation have banned use of combustion leaf blowers, including the city of Aspen, and seasonal prohibition within the city of Denver. So the Green Team desires to begin this policy on applicable town-owned property, thereby setting an example of good environmental stewardship, with the interest of exploring a ban on these in the future. And should we be interested in expanding that ban in the future, we'll be back with a new ordinance. So staff recommends that Town Council approve Resolution Number 6, Series of 2025.
Do you know?
Resolution number 6, or is it 3?
3.
Very cool.
Wait, there's a lot of,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I skipped down and went,
3 and ordinance.
Yeah, ordinance
Resolution
3.
40. It's, yeah, it's a little confusing.
So is it,
It's resolution.
Reso 3?
Reso 3, yep, apologies.
This is a resolution number 3.
Michelle, did Aspen ban it entirely, or is it Aspen's on town
Entirely.
entirely?
Mhm.
this is the kind of stuff I get to nerd out on every day, and I feel like this is a really unglamorous thing to do in the best way. Like, 1 hour of your leaf blower is about 1,000 miles on a car. Think of how many 82 vehicle trips you just saved in an hour. Like, working at a ski company all the time, we hear about snowmaking, and I wish people would ask us about snowmobiles, also 2-stroke engines, sometimes 4-stroke engines, because when Aspen Skiing Company converts about 50 snowmobiles to be electric, and we only use them a few months out of the year, a few hours a day, that would be like taking 2,000 cars off the road. So you have this kind of asymmetrical leverage with things like this.
Has, and I apologize if I missed this, what would be the cost to the town to buy a whole new fleet of electric leaf blowers, and is that budgeted for?
Yeah, so
We have a few leaf blowers, Public Works does, so we'd probably need to replace those. A lot of our leaf blowing occurs through a contractor. So that contractor
Would have to assume that cost.
Yeah, so we would see an increase, likely, on that contract.
But they also probably already have
They might have
electric
some.
leaf blowers because they're working in Aspen.
Exactly.
Is it Good Earth? Is that who's on?
Good Earth.
And there's
Wanted to make
pretty
sure that
good
it was
rebates
accounted for.
available.
Yeah.
What's that, Hannah?
There's pretty decent rebates available for all sorts of things, like including electric chainsaws, replacing your lawnmower, things like that. And the rebates goal is to be the cost differential between the gas replacement and the electric replacement.
It's not a huge lift for us, is the reality.
And by adopting it at this point in the year, we have an opportunity to get ahead of our contracts for this coming year.
Yeah, I think it's a great proof of concept. Let's check it out. I mean, they can, Good Earth can get on board, and we can see how it goes, and people can see them in action, and they might like it. I know that noise, you hear this, especially all fall. Are they quieter than that?
They are significantly quieter. They're the
Quieter, they're not
this-
quiet, but they're quieter.
They're quieter.
That fall noise?
These are often passed through noise ordinances.
Yeah.
We're not going that route this time, but.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 3, series of 2025.
Second.
Moved and
Jill?
seconded.
I didn't mean to steal it from you, Angela.
I'll give you a signal next time.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next up is item 6D, public hearing and first reading of ordinance number 4, series of 2025, an ordinance of the town council of the town of Basalt, Colorado for the regulation of traffic by the town of Basalt, Colorado, repealing and reenacting parts of the Basalt Municipal Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, and thereby adopting by reference the 2024 edition of the Model Traffic Code and providing penalties for violation thereof. And Harper and Greg. All right, got different people doing it. It's cool.
Harper's taking the show.
All right.
So the model traffic code is to provide for uniform traffic regulations throughout the state, and the state updates this model traffic code about every 4 years, and it should be current through the legislative session of 2023. There was a law passed last year that we added to our local amendments. So what we do when we look at the 2024 model traffic code is we look at the changes from the 2020 version that we had adopted, and Basalt already has made several local amendments to the code. So we just kind of cross-referenced with that, and then we added a law that was passed last year in 2024 regulating the use of mobile electronic devices while driving.
And you'll also see the attachment of our fine and fee schedule. Nothing has changed from our previous adoption. Those fines and fees have stayed the same. There's been an addition of the hands-free into that fine and fee schedule, but dollar amounts, points, they haven't changed at all.
Got it. Thanks for the overview on the changes. I was kind of wondering about that. This is a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing. See if anybody wants to come up and speak. See if there's anybody online who might want to speak about this one. Don't see anybody raising their hand or coming to the podium, so I will close the public hearing and open up the council for questions and comments.
Makes sense. Mayor, I move that the town council approve ordinance number 4, series of 2025 on first reading and set the public hearing and second reading for February 25th, 2025.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Angel Dupre-Bouchard,
Yes.
Ryan Slack,
Yes.
David Knight,
Yes.
Dieter Schindler,
Yes.
Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, I think this is the last one. We have, item 6E, resolution number 4, series of 2025, a resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving an agreement with Design Workshop for planning services related to affordable housing implementation. James, if you have this one.
Yeah, thank you. As the mayor indicated, this would approve of a professional services agreement with Design Workshop for the planning services related to affordable housing implementation. The housing study that was done by EPS had a series of direction and recommendations related to implementing various programs and code changes. The town did receive a $93,000 grant from DOLA for planning capacity support, which would fund this program and this RFP. And so staff published an RFP and received 6 proposals, and we interviewed the 2 top teams, and Design Workshop was selected by staff and recommended by staff. Design Workshop had exceptional understanding of the scope of work and had significant experience in implementing programs and doing code work. So staff would recommend approval of the resolution and the professional services agreement. We have Jessica Garrow here this evening, who's a principal with Design Workshop, and if you have questions for her, you can certainly ask them, or staff would recommend approval of the resolution. And Jessica, do you have anything?
Do you have any comments or anything you want to share?
Hi, Jessica Garrow. As James said, I'm a principal with Design Workshop. We're located just around the corner. I live in Southside. So we were really excited to be able to respond to an RFP here in our own community to support housing issues. We've partnered with EPS. They have a long history with the town and supporting housing studies throughout the valley, throughout the Western Slope. So we were also really excited to partner with them, and happy to answer any questions you have about our proposal or scope work.
And this is for implementation, so we're doing the policy stuff,
Yes.
and then once we kind of get everything sussed out,
Yeah, this is
our
for,
workshop will do the implementation.
exactly, this is for sort of the other items on our list, such as developing an ADU program, the deed restriction incentive program, outlining the details of that, potentially looking at a long-term funding source for the Affordable Housing Fund, and general land use code amendments to our land use code. So all of the things are talking together and related, and we don't have accidental conflicts within the code.
Okay.
Including evaluation of mitigation rates
Oh,
was
yeah.
one of those items as well.
Looking at dependencies, because like I was saying, there's multiple things we're trying to do. We want to make sure that manage those dependencies between things so we get the outcomes we want in totality by all of the individual policies and processes that we come up with. I mean, I think that's
Right.
one of the critical things, for me at least. It sounds like others too. Great. Any other questions or comments?
I'm looking forward to see recommendations. And my house is in the packet and my recycle station. But Mayor, I move that the town council adopt resolution number 4, series of 2025 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, all right. Well, I think we're done, so thanks for the time, and we're almost 15 minutes over, not too bad. See you guys later, thanks.